We've come to our Friday feature now, Movie Spotlight, where we review some of the latest releases at the Korean box office and online. And gracing us with their presence this week are our film critics. First, we have Jason Bechervaise. Hello, Jason.
Hello, Jang Hyuk.
Yes, it's good to see you. And we also have with us Darcy Paquet. Hello, Darcy.
Yeah, pleasure to be here.
Yes, hope you enjoyed the rest of your time at the Bucheon Film Festival last week.
I did.
We're going to begin this week with a new Korean action film starring Jang Hyuk. It's called The Killer, A Girl Who Deserves to Die. In Korean, it's called The Killer, 죽어도 되는 아이. It hits screens here on Wednesday. Jason, I gather from the title then that it centres around a killer.
It does. It's a very straightforward plot. So Jang Hyuk, the actor, he plays a former assassin who has settled down, or so he thought, and got married. And then his wife asks him for a favour to take care of her best friend's daughter. Now, of course, she gets kidnapped, and initially he doesn't really take it seriously, but he is keeping an eye, and she gets involved in a gang, gets kidnapped, and so, of course, this former assassin goes round, killing anyone and anything that gets in his way. It's based on the novel The Kid Deserves to Die by Bang Ji-ho. It's directed by Choi Jaehoon, who worked with Jang Hyuk on the action film The Swordsman. He entered the industry working in production design, also stars Bruce Chan, Lee Se-young, and there are some notable cameos too, Cha Tae-yeon and Son Hyun-ju. That seems to be a bit of a trend at the moment. And it had its world premiere at the Udine Far East Film Festival, and Darcy was there, so I look forward to hearing what audiences there thought about the film. And it's also been pre-sold to over 20 countries.
Okay, so Darcy, a former assassin who's been pulled out of retirement because of something that happened to a loved one. Where have we heard this before? Oh yes, pretty much every action film that we've seen over the last 10 years, it seems, but further back as well. I mean, just off the top of my head, there's Taken, there's John Wick. To say the plot is cliched at this point, it's beyond that, really. Is it as derivative as it sounds, or is there something new, at least newly enjoyable here?
I mean, it's not completely true. I think I said here a couple of weeks ago that, cliche depends on the details. And I mean, there are some fun details in this film. And I think Jang Hyuk is successful in creating a memorable character. One thing I really loved about his character is that he's always carrying around this latte.
Coffee, yeah.
He's like sipping a coffee as he's shooting bad guys. Which apparently was something that Jang Hyuk kind of came up with himself and decided to incorporate into the film. But yeah, I mean, it's a mix of humor. I thought the action sequences were pretty well done. I mean, particularly considering that, this isn't some huge box office or a huge budgeted film. It's not some kind of blockbuster, but, I didn't expect huge things in terms of the action, but it was really quite kinetic and exciting, I thought.
Okay, so there are definitely merits. Jason, what do you think?
Yeah, it's fun. There's a lot of shooting in the film. Jang Hyuk has he embodies this interesting character, kind of really monotone, low voice. Walking around with a coffee, like Darcy said, and just... it's fun. I mean, it is very derivative. John Wick, The Equalizer, all these films. It's clearly imitating, but it's also having fun at the same time. It never takes itself too seriously. There's a bit of humor in the film. You got people kind of like falling from buildings, and so there's a bit of dark humor that I think works quite well. You know where it's all going. We've seen it all before, and yet it is effective. It is fun. And I can see audiences getting behind this film. Although I was quite surprised when I was looking at one of the portals. I was expecting it to be majority of male viewers watching this film, but actually it was more female viewers. And that really surprised me.
Okay, so there are definitely things working for it, going for it. Darcy, as Jason said, you saw it at a film screening in Italy at a festival. How was it received there?
I mean, it was received quite well. The director was there in attendance. Jang Hyuk, unfortunately, couldn't come because she was shooting a TV drama. But yeah, I mean, the crowd liked it, and not only just the ordinary crowd, but at film festivals you sometimes get distributors or people who are looking to buy films for their own territories, and the film is sold very well, and I find that interesting because this is a film that's not going to tear up the box office in Korea. It's doing okay, I think, relative to expectations now, but this is the kind of film that sells well abroad, and it does have some kind of a market. You can market this based on its genre, and in that sense, I think it fulfilled all of the requirements for this kind of low-budget genre film.
Sure. Okay. So that was The Killer, A Girl Who Deserves to Die, and it's out now in Korean cinemas. Next up is the big Hollywood release of the week. It is Elvis, with the same title in Korean. It is a musical biopic by the Australian filmmaker Baz Luhrmann, known for films such as Romeo and Juliet, Moulin Rouge, and The Great Gatsby. Now, Darcy, he is known for his exuberant style, shall we say, which does usually split audiences. I understand this film has attracted mixed reaction from audiences already.
Yes, it certainly has. It premiered in Cannes. In Cannes, there are a lot of dark films that premiere at that film festival, and very heavy and serious films. And, this one, I don't think Cannes is the best place maybe to watch a film like this. But yeah, I mean, critics were... it was pretty much 50-50, it seemed. Some appreciated the energy of the film and had some good things to say about it. Others, not so much. Interestingly, it's been performing really well at the box office in the US. Before it was released, I heard some commentary that perhaps, this wasn't the best thing to bet your money on, that, Elvis was for previous generations, but for young people today doesn't perhaps have a lot of box office pull. And they were comparing it unfavorably to Bohemian Rhapsody in terms of just the concept and its, box office potential. But
Bohemian Rhapsody did really well.
It did extremely well.
But critics hated it.
Yes.
That's true. Yeah.
That was the prime example of a film that doesn't need a critic to do well. In this film too, in 3 weeks it sold $100 million in the US. And so in the US at least, and to a certain extent internationally, it's doing well.
Yeah, the UK as well. It's doing really well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, the story, it's told from the perspective of Elvis Presley's manager, who's played by Tom Hanks. And it kind of looks back over the course of their career together. This guy, Tom Parker, quite famously took advantage of Elvis throughout much of his career. And so it looks at their relationship, at the weaknesses of both Elvis and his manager, and so it is kind of really focused on these two characters.
Right, sure, okay. So Jason, music biopics, they can also again fall into cliche. They can be a bit formulaic. The rise to stardom, bumps along the road, the inspiration for hit songs, etc. But Baz Luhrmann, he's not your typical director. Does he bring something new to the genre? What did you make of the film?
I had a great time, actually. I had a real blast. I wasn't expecting to enjoy it as much as I did. It does have some problems. The first 45 minutes have so much energy, and I was sitting there, I was like, you can't maintain this for 2.5 hours because it is long, and you can't. But the first 40 odd minutes are absolutely fantastic. I was mesmerized. It's just so wonderfully edited. There's just so much energy, and the music pieces are fantastic. The performances are... Austin Butler, he is terrific. He plays amazing? Elvis. Now, Tom Hanks, as much as I really admire him, but his accent is... I don't know what his accent is. It's all over the shop. Some issues with it. With a biopic, it's so hard to do something different. And to a certain extent, he is able to kind of leave his own character and certainly the vibrancy in terms of the way the film looks, the way it flows. I think it works really well, and is very kind of Baz Luhrmann. But certainly in the kind of middle part of the film, it begins to kind of, as it settles down, but it struggles to kind of regain momentum, and it does feel a bit long. That being said, though, I had a blast, and I would watch it again.
Right, Darcy, what about you? Did you have as much fun?
Yeah, I went in with similarly low expectations. I mean, skimmed through some of the reviews in Cannes, and to be honest, I was expecting something slightly unhinged because they made it sound like this film that was completely out of control.
Yeah.
Just kind of crash and burn. And there's a lot of split screen and spinning cameras and sudden transitions from here and there, but I never found it kind of, I don't know, unsettling, or it doesn't really kind of knock you off course. And the story that it tells is really interesting. Elvis himself is a fascinating character, both in the film and in real life. And so every moment that he was on screen, which was much of the film, I was really enjoying it. Tom Hanks, it's really interesting because, Tom Hanks has made a career of playing nice guys. And, his character here is so unlikable. It's quite unusual for Tom Hanks to be playing someone so unlikable. But for me, I guess the issue that I had was that it's not just that he's unlikable, but he's kind of a very flat character.
Right. Okay. So two-dimensional.
To me, just, after a minute or two, you get an idea of what makes this guy tick. And there's really not much more to him. And a lot of the film is kind of told from this manager's perspective, and it devotes a lot of time to his psychology, which I honestly didn't really care that much about.
Sure.
I just wanted to focus on Elvis.
Yeah, I also like how it delves into kind of America's past, the civil rights movement, and how Elvis was influenced by, African Americans and their kind of gospel music, and how that kind of would impact, his career, and how he was quite keen to do things differently. And also, as I was watching the film, you can see kind of how America is struggling. It's got this kind of internal, this civil war between the left and the right, and it feels relevant, as I was watching the film. And so I think it doesn't go too heavy into those themes, but I think it does enough to kind of make it feel relevant, and I'm sure it will resonate.
Okay, so despite the mixed reviews, both our critics here seem to enjoy Elvis. Jason, finally, do you think it will find an audience here in Korea? We have seen in the past films featuring recognizable music or a strong soundtrack have sometimes struck a chord with viewers here, such as Bohemian Rhapsody, as you mentioned earlier. But again, here in Korea, perhaps Elvis isn't as well known.
Sure, he doesn't have the same popularity that Queen has, of course. But I think the musical numbers are done so well that I think the audience reaction to the film will be pretty strong. It already is pretty strong, but it's different to Bohemian Rhapsody. Although there are some sequences in the film that remind it, certainly towards the end, that I think were put in there as a result, perhaps, of having watched Bohemian Rhapsody and seeing why it performs so well at the box office. But it won't do as well, but I see audiences liking it nonetheless.
Okay, we'll wrap it up there. Jason, Darcy, thank you as always for your reviews, and we'll catch up with you next time.
Okay, see you next time.
Take care.